This video is dedicated to one of my lovely Patreon patrons whose username I'm assuming is pronounced briwookie. If I am wrong about that, please let me know in the comment section down below. And keep in mind that if you do have a topic that you would like me to cover in one of these videos, your best bet to get me to do so is to check out my Patreon, link in the description down below. In all honesty, this is a video that I could have put off until the very end of the lifespan of my channel, whatever that ends up being. Until long after Steven Universe is off the air even. Not because I don't want to talk about this subject, because honestly I've wanted to make a video about Amethyst's character for a very long time, but simply because it's not relevant. Which is not to say that Amethyst's characterization is bad, or that her character is bad, or that Amethyst herself is bad, just that she is the best realized character in the show. And yes, I'm including Steven. And the reason that I'm able to say that with such certainty is because Amethyst's character arc is finished. Her character journey is over. Now that's not to say she couldn't be given a new arc. It's not to say she couldn't be set on a new journey. But the character arc that she was set upon with her characterization in the very first season is done. It's over. And I think it concluded rather satisfactorily. I've talked about this a bit elsewhere in some of my other videos, particularly reviews involving Amethyst. So a lot of this may seem like a simple summation of things that I have talked about in other places, but that is just unfortunately the nature of this kind of analysis. We have followed Amethyst's characterization all throughout the past episodes of the show, and so of course I will have talked about each stage in her journey at some point in the past. Amethyst in the first season was, well, let's face it, she was comic relief. She was comic relief without a lot of depth. There was some implications of depth there, but for the most part she was just the goofy older sister to Steven. Not literally, of course, just the goofy older sister archetype. She primarily existed to encourage him to do things that he otherwise wouldn't consider to do, because either the other gems never would have really suggested them to him, or he was just not mischievous enough to think of them on his own. And there were indications at the time that Amethyst knew that that's the kind of person she was, and that she was owning up to it. That she didn't care to grow or evolve. And I think that stems from the fact that back when Rose was still alive, she seemingly refused to tell Amethyst what her role would have been on Homeworld, or the fact that she was undersized for a quartz, that she was effectively defective. I'm sure that Rose had the best intentions in mind when doing this, wanting Amethyst to grow into her own person rather than conform to what Homeworld would have wanted her to be. But I think it was definitely a mistake to not tell her at all, not to tell her anything about who she would have been if she had been part of that society. Instead, she told Amethyst that she was perfect exactly the way she is, which is true, of course, but she seemed to leave it at that. It became very clear very quickly over the course of Amethyst's development that, especially since Rose died, she has been looking for her place in the team, to discover exactly what it is that she brings to their dynamic, what exactly her use is. That Rose never gave her any more direction than be yourself, I think contributed in the long run to a lot of the turmoil that Amethyst has experienced in the series proper. And that's not to say that Amethyst didn't do a good job of finding out who she is as a person. We have seen in the show that she spends time with humans, or at least she used to spend time with humans, and seems to be the only gem among the crystal gems aside from Rose who did this regularly, though probably because of Amethyst's unique nature as a gem who is also an earthling, the only gem who is also an earthling among the full gem crystal gems. She never seems to have had the problem that Rose seems to have sometimes had, where despite herself she looked down on humans. Amethyst seems to have always seen herself as an equal to humans, at least socially speaking, having two confirmed human friends in Greg and Vidalia. This is a super cool aspect of her character, of course, but it also suggests that even though she was part of what came to be something of a family unit in the Crystal Gems, she still felt the need to seek out companionship elsewhere, which is yet more of an indication that Amethyst is coded as the sort of older teenage sister. She has rebellious tendencies and doesn't relate well to her family. It's almost textbook, which means it's also worth noting that much like the stereotypical rebellious teen, she does have aggression issues. Or at least she had them in the past, probably stemming from her nature as a quartz, an aggressive warrior gem. She doesn't seem like she really has them anymore. She seems to have grown past them at this point, but we can't really know for sure yet. I'm actually kind of hoping that she hasn't just magically lost those tendencies and we get to actually see how she deals with them in a more mature way as the series progresses. But after Coach Steven and On the Run, we started to see a change in Amethyst's character. We didn't see it in Coach Steven Steven or in any of the episodes immediately after Coach Steven, but we do see later, during the Sardonyx arc, that Amethyst's negative traits contributing to Sugilite's out-of-control behavior did affect her. She regretted that, but didn't quite feel like she could change it. And in On the Run, we finally got to see exactly why there seems to be a rift between Amethyst and Pearl and Garnet. Pearl is the largest offender in this particular instance, but the fact is the other crystal gems, the ones who came from Homeworld, who never really had any direct negative effect on the planet, without even meaning to, made Amethyst feel like she was somehow at fault for what happened to the Earth. Which is also probably why it's been heavily implied by multiple episodes at this point that up until recently Amethyst visited the kindergarten a lot, because in some ways she felt more at home there than she did with her friends. It makes me wonder, did Rose inadvertently treat her like this as well? After confronting Pearl about the way that Pearl treats her, even without meaning to, and after realizing that her negative traits almost got Steven killed when she was part of Sugilite, we started to see in Amethyst a real desire to change her behavior for the better. She was still bothered when the kindergarten's effect on the Earth was mentioned, but she no longer took it personally. And yet there were still aspects of her identity that she still needed to explore, that she still needed to come to understand. We saw an example of this in her regular secret asides to participate in local underground wrestling, because she is a gem meant to fight. She has aggressive tendencies that being a crystal gem simply doesn't allow her to work through in any kind of regular way. So in an effort to find herself, in an effort to discover why it is that she feels so unsure of herself in this particular area, she participated in fights, allowing her to explore her own identity and work out some of that aggression without the other crystal gems stopping her, without the other crystal gems getting in the way. It wasn't long after this that they started to entwine Amethyst's development in with Steven. Steven was also a character who was searching for his place on the team, for what he brought to the group dynamic. After he decided that he would take on the role of protecting everyone and started to work towards that goal, now suddenly he was contributing to Amethyst's feelings of inadequacy as well. Now his actions, his skills, his dynamic with the others were causing her to question her role in the group. This culminated in her confrontation with Jasper on the beach and her fight with Steven in Steven vs. Amethyst. Here, Amethyst hit her lowest point and had to make the conscious choice to dedicate herself to becoming better. It's never explicitly said, but I kind of got the feeling that up until that point she was afraid of trying because she was afraid of failing. It wasn't until Steven confessed to her how much he needs her, not for her physical abilities, but for who she is as a person, for the bond that they share, and the two of them fused into smoky quartz, that she finally became comfortable with herself. It wasn't until that moment that Rose's words to her that she is perfect just the way she is actually finally became true. Amethyst is perfect just the way she is, but that doesn't mean she doesn't need to improve. That doesn't mean she doesn't need to strive to be more. But regardless of what choices she makes, Amethyst, the person, is enough. Coming to this realization changed her entire outlook on things, so much so that she no longer felt the need to explore her identity through the persona of the Purple Puma and gave up underground wrestling altogether. Since then, Amethyst's role in the story has been pretty much exactly what you'd expect from that climactic experience in the shape that it took. The fact of the matter, in many ways, Amethyst isn't as good as other gems. She isn't quite as strong, she isn't quite as fast, and the fact of the matter is she probably never will be. And so instead of dwelling on that, instead of letting that affect her in a negative way, she has begun to draw a different kind of strength from her bonds with others. Even so much that she has been helping another gem who doesn't quite feel like she belongs, who doesn't quite know where it is that she fits within this new role that she's assumed for herself, to learn about herself and come to terms with who she is and become comfortable in her own skin, much the same way that Amethyst herself has. Her relationship with Peridot is one of the most interesting things about her character, for the simple reason that even before her arc concluded, even before she came to the realization that her true strength comes from being strong for others, she was already displaying that sort of behavior in her interactions with Peridot. And I believe that the next leg of her character's journey, assuming that she is given another arc by the writers, will be to continue to pursue that relationship. I wouldn't go so far as to say that Amethyst is my favorite character on the show, but she's pretty high up in the list, probably like 3rd or 4th overall. And a big part of that is because of just how fully realized she is as a character. She started off as someone who at best was pretty amusing in the background of the episode, and who at worst was actually kind of frustrating, and has legitimately become one of the best things about this show. The characterization of Amethyst, the arc that she has followed, I think is one of the best examples of what this show does right, of what this show can accomplish flourish through its writing. Gems may not age, but they certainly do grow as people. And Amethyst, I think, has had more growth of any gem character in the show overall, which is pretty cool. But of course, as per usual, what do you think of this video? What are your takes on Amethyst's characterization? How do you feel about her character in general? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree? Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below. Either way, this has been AJ22, and I will talk to you guys later.